Do you feel like you're stuck in that first position pentatonic box? You're not able to explore the rest of the guitar neck. Let's break out of that in a pretty easy way, at least for me, much easier than just memorizing this position, and so on. If you don't know, my name is Ryan Gunn. I've been helping guitar players get out of this really boring, boxy pentatonic plateau that we all get into and bridge the gap between their creative ideas and what they are able to play. If you would, please hit the subscribe and bell notification to get more videos on how to make your guitar playing better. Let's jump in, okay? So what is happening is we start to look at the pentatonic and the positions of the pentatonic as just dots on a diagram and patterns. We're not really looking at it as music that we're supposed to play and build phrases and sort of build a language around, right? And that's what keeps us stuck in this sort of really boring pentatonic plateau, even in the first position, right? Now, what can happen and tends to happen is once we start getting comfortable creating some sort of lick, music, whatever it is, phrases, in this first position, because it's very comfortable, as soon as we get up to the other positions, it starts to go back to being really robotic, right? Most guitar players can get away with creating music here and then moving up to that sort of blues box, right? Up into the second position just on the bottom three string. So that's sort of like if I'm in A minor, right? 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 9, right? 10, 8, 10, 8, 10, right? That sort of position. Now, we need to know the spelling of the minor pentatonic, which I hope that you do by now, is 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And the reason that is important is that's how we start building our phrases and developing a vocabulary, right? If I end a phrase on that flat 3, gives me a little tension, and then I can resolve it with the root note. When that becomes comfortable, right, when we're looking at it in this position, we can visually also see that A minor bar chord, right? And that will help us sort of get around with those root notes, right? And at least visualizing that as sort of a visual and a backbone to sort of rely on, right? What's really cool is there is one more position, right, that a bar chord visual can help us. And that's in the 1, 2, 3, 4th position of the minor pentatonic. And that's because my root note now for my bar chord and for the scale is going to be the 12th fret here, but on the A string, right? Regular old A minor bar chord, right? I'm gonna do it up here rather than doing it open. So up here. Now, what's really cool is if I develop my vocabulary down here in phrasing and such, I can do it up here as well, using that bar chord and where those root notes are, right, as my guide. If that happens, and I get really comfortable in this position and in this position, there is only one row of frets separating the two. So I just have a row of 10, 10, 10, 9 on the G string, 10 and 10, okay? So if I can think that, I'm never far from a comfortable position and a comfortable position, right? I'm just using those 10s in between. Now, just like when we're learning the positions of the minor pentatonic, right? The upper frets, right, my 8s and 7s in this first position become my lower frets in the second position, right? Which is great. At least it gives me something to rely on. And yes, this might be a little tricky at first, but if I'm thinking 10s except for the G string, which is 9, now it gets a little bit easier. Because I'm like, okay, well, I know where my 8s and 7s are, right, from this position. I know everything's a 10 except for the G string, so I can just rely on that. All right, using my 7s, all right. Okay, cool. Now, I can do the same thing in this position, right? I know where my 12s are. 12, 12, 12, 12, 13, and 12. All right, well, if I know that, and I know this, okay, well, I can get up here, you know, and maybe start creating a little bit of music, knowing where those two positions are, and so on. So it's almost like it crawls its way up. What we want to do when we start recognizing that is not fall into just the pattern and start creating some music. So if I have a very simple phrase, all right, it's my flat 3, 5th fret on the G string, and then I go to my root note, 7th fret of the D, 7th fret, 5th fret, back to 7th fret. That's my lick. Nice and easy, right? And because I can use the higher frets in this position as the lower frets in this position, I can do the same thing with a lick. Okay, so my higher fret is that 7th fret on the D string, right? My starting note is just the next note in the scale. So if I go up, put my first finger there, just go to the next note in the scale, I can use my 10s. So now I have, okay, that's not too bad. So now I have in that position, all right. Well, now if I have my 10s, those upper frets, the 10s, now become the lower frets, and I can use my 12s in that 113 because I know this position really well. Okay, well, I can do the same thing. And look, I still have my 10 and my 10 on my D and my A string. From there, I'm just moving it up. Right, and I can keep going. All right, now, why that becomes useful is we're getting away from just looking at dots on a diagram and patterns, and we're now stepping out of memorizing and moving into learning. We're attaching a language to it, right? Music is a language. The guitar is just the voice that we're singing or speaking that language through. So when we start doing that, we're actually learning and integrating it into this sort of musical vocabulary. I personally was awful at school. If there was a test coming up, all I would do was memorize, take the test, and then forget, because I never learned it. There wasn't a learning process. I didn't need to use it. I didn't want to learn it. This becomes the same idea of you're just memorizing one position. You're just memorizing the next position. You're just memorizing the next position. If I'm now looking at those positions, even with just this really easy, short 3-note lick, right? Because there's only 3 notes in there. I can play it there. And now if I'm looking at my positions of the pentatonic, right, sort of laid out, if I have a chart of it, I can say, okay, all right, well, now it makes a little bit more sense. Rather than digesting the whole thing with all 6 strings, right, and getting really robotic, just saying, oh, I can see where that fits in. Cool. If I move up to the 3rd position, all right, I can see where that fits in. All right, let me try something that's in a different part of the scale. All right, now if I'm moving it up and I'm just using the same thing, the 8s, right? The 5s go away. Those 8s become the back fret. What did I play? That's what it was. Right now, that 10 and that 9 become the back frets, and I'm just moving up through what I already know. I can't remember how I actually played it. Yeah, that was it. So now, if I'm doing that here with that first lick, right, in that second lick, I'm now seeing this musically, and I have a language to attach to it through the positions, right? And it breaks that really monotonous idea of, okay, I'm starting to get it. Boom, back to robotic, because I'm not really sure how to communicate in that position or this position, right? And it's really, really great when this starts to happen. Now, take a lick that's a little bit longer, or I should say just it spans a little bit more of the scale, right? Cool. Can I play that in the other positions? I'm just going root note to root note. Can I do it up here? All right, this isn't too bad. All right, now I'm covering a little bit more ground, right? Awesome. If I can start doing this, I promise you, if you can start doing it, I should say, I promise you that those 5 positions of the pentatonic are going to open up. And really just looking at it as, oh, I've got one comfortable position for right now. I've got another comfortable position for right now that I'm using those bar chord forms in, right, that I can see. And then I just have this row in between. Take one lick, you start moving it. You start start noticing that those patterns look a lot the same, right? They're either 2 frets apart here, right? And the root note is the upper fret, or they're 3 frets apart, right? And the root note is the lower one. Same pattern as right here. This one, same pattern as here, right? If I do it down here in my 5th position. So you start noticing these patterns. And lastly, really getting into moving around these positions, right, is we're never lost from a comfortable position. If we get this down and we get this down, just those 2 positions, and I can play them comfortably and musically, we're never far from them. Okay, so if I'm here, right, if I go into that 2nd position, I don't have to get lost because I have this back end, right, as the top end of my 1st position becomes the back end of my 2nd position, right? And then if I'm going up here, I'd say, okay, that back end of this position just becomes the top end of this position, and oh, good, nope, I've got my 10s with my 9 on the G. Okay, I'm not too lost. I'm not getting lost here, right? Then the last one is also really easy, right? If I'm moving this position up here, my 1, 2, 3, 4th position of that minor pentatonic, up here to the 5th position of the pentatonic, I'd say, all right, well, I know 15, 15, 14, 14, 15, 15. All right, what's really nice is that 5th position of the minor pentatonic, I'm going back to 1st position. And what I know about 1st position is all of those 17s or all of these 5s are my back end. So I'm just going to use that as my front end of this position. Right, or to bring it up here. And how do I know what's going on down here? Well, this is easy. So I know those 17s, or in this position 5s, are all just straight across. Well, what's going on down here? Oh, the same thing that it was here. 15, 15, 14, 14, 15, 15, right? So I'm never far if I know that position well and that position well. I'm never far from either position, and I can always rely on them. And that's how we can really unlock this fretboard. If you're an intermediate guitar player that really wants to bridge the gap between your creative ideas and what you were able to play, becoming fully fretboard fluent and getting out of that really robotic, sort of boxy, I'm just running up and down the scale, improvisational guitar solos, I have a free training to get you out of that plateau that we all get into. That link is below, or you're more than welcome to comment pro and I will reach out. You can send me an email or DM me on any social media and talk about how I can help you break that plateau. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.